And so, Sean, you were very passionate about this story, the John Jones story.
Yeah,
John
John
Jones.
Jones is potentially the dumbest human being to ever step foot on this earth. So for those of you that don't know, about 12 hours after he was inducted to the Hall of Fame for his Gustafsson fight, um, he was arrested in Las Vegas for misdemeanor charges of domestic battery, I believe, and tampering with a vehicle. And for a while, no one really knew what happened, but as days have passed, more and more details have kind of come out. Um, Allegedly, his wife was seen with a bloody nose and bloody lip. And her kids apparently told a security guard to call the police or something like that. But long story short, she says Jones only curled her hair as she walked around with a bloody nose and bloody lips. Jones's excuse was probably amongst the best he's ever given. Jones just looks the cops right in the eye, and this is after he was headbutting their car. That's why tampering with a vehicle was added, because he was headbutting their car in between fits of rage and sorrow. He looks him dead in the eye and goes, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't notice she was. I came back for $10,000 in ones because we're going to go to the strip club. I don't know. I didn't even notice she was bleeding everywhere. John motherfucking Jones.
Well,
that is the dumbest excuse. It's like a kid getting caught next to a broken vase and going, oh.
Well, what I find just absolutely hilarious about this story in general is that a few hours before he had given an interview that he was going to stay in the news, but with legal controversy, not illegal controversy.
Yeah.
So I just find that to be hilarious. But you know what, though? It's the first display of John Jones' heavyweight power. I mean, the guy can headbutt a car.
True, if only he could headbutt in fights.
Like, hey, I mean, hair pulling, headbutts, new things to the arsenal. Heavyweight John Jones innovating.
New strikes in the arsenal, guys. Look forward to heavyweight John Jones.
But in all seriousness, I mean, besides headbutting and hair pulling to go along with the eye poke, I wonder if he eye poked her too. Just curious if he was keeping distance. But gotta keep
your significantly smaller than you wife at distance,
Fiance, Sean.
Fiance. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So either way, he also admitted that he'd been having trouble with her. So he also just gave the cops a motive. So that's pretty dope of him. But I kind of think the UFC should cut him for this.
I kind of agree. He
hasn't fought in how long?
Yeah, and I don't think his performance is a worry because John Jones has been doing John Jones stuff like this for his entire career. But I don't know. I feel like you can't let one of your champions run around and act like this if you want to be seen as a professional, smart promotion,
Well, that's one way to get away from Ngannou.
Is get cut for domestic battery. Yeah.
Hey, alleged, Sean.
Alleged misdemeanor domestic battery. So
there you go.
Yeah.
No, I actually do think they should cut him for this, though.
I agree.
This would be a smart decision for the UFC. And you know what? If he goes to fight elsewhere, fine. I mean, at this point, he just sounds really difficult to deal with. And personally, I thought he lost his last two fights at light heavyweight.
After rewatching the Dominic Reyes ones, I used to too, but after rewatching the Dominic Reyes one, I don't. I think it was a close fight that he won.
See, I still think Reyes won the first 3 rounds, and I thought John came on late.
I can't remember because I rewatched it a while ago, but I think John Jones did win that one.
The other one that's 50.
When I rewatched it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Jones was kind of winning this.
But if you go, okay, Dominic Reyes won.
Yeah.
If you go by the scoring and how it goes, John Jones had a lot of aggression and octagon control.
Yeah.
However, with the scoring system they currently have in place, it's different from the old scoring system. Effective striking. Reyes landed the cleaner shots, and the harder shots. And in the first 3 rounds, it landed a little bit more.
Yeah.
So aggression and octagon control, you don't even read into it.
Yeah. I'll have to rewatch the fight again and see, like, watch it keeping that in mind. But on to some other MMA news. UFC 266. Main card, every favorite one, I believe. That's nuts.
It's surprising.
Yeah,
certain.
you know. To start us off, though, we're going to talk about the absolute war that we saw for the main event in Volkanovsky versus Ortega. That was insane. You know, like there were a couple times where Ortega had really, really tight submissions, but Volkanovsky just always managed to get out. He defended them really well. Volk looked great on the feet. I don't think anybody gave. I think Ortega, one judge gave him 1 round, right? You know, that was nuts.
So minor correction there. The scorecards were all 50-45, 50-45, and 50-44.
Oh, okay. So one gave Volkanovsky a 10-8.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Well, my personal thoughts on that one, absolute war. Ortega's really tough.
What?
Absolute war. Ortega's really tough.
Yes, absolutely.
But he is not ready for the highest tier fighters. Yeah. I mean, Volkanovsky and Holloway both landed over 200 significant strikes on him. In 2 of his last 3 fights, he's been punched over 200 times.
Yeah.
I mean, he is just taking hellacious beatings by Holloway and Volkanovsky. They're just that much of a tier ahead of him.
Yeah.
And
you know, it makes you wonder how when Ortega fought Korean Zombie, you know, he dominated Korean Zombie. And the Korean Zombie even came out and said he wasn't happy with his performance, that he thought he was being stupid. But still, he put the work on Korean Zombie.
I think Ortega struggles with pace.
Struggles with pace? Yeah, that might be fair. Because we both know Volkanovsky and Holloway put that high pace on.
Well, Volkanovsky puts a different type of high pace than Holloway. Mm-hmm. Holloway's high pace builds over time. It's more based on momentum, so it gets worse the longer you fight. Volkanovsky comes out from the word go.
Yeah.
And puts the high pace there. And that's like a little different style.
Yeah,
and
true.
What he does, though, is he makes people anxious. He backs them up to the cage. He does all these weird, like, CKB, so City Kickboxing. That's where he trains out of New Zealand with Adesanya and Hooker and those boys. But he's really, really good at feinting and getting you on the defensive. And it looked like Ortega was kind of lost out there during moments of the fight. Now, he would just try and respond with power, which is the correct thing to do. What drives me nuts about Ortega, though, is you have this amazing jiu-jitsu game. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you think, being a jiu-jitsu player, and that's what got you to the dance?
Yeah.
You know what you decided to do was box the whole time.
Yeah. You know, it's weird. Whenever it was on the ground, in between Volkanovski's like ground and pound, Ortega was getting really good looks at some submissions. You know, Volkanovski even said a lot of those submissions that Ortega threw up were tight.
Well,
and he didn't know if he could get out of them. You know?
The mounted guillotine, I truly have no idea how Volkanovski was able to
I don't either. But he was finding success with the submission game and like the ground game. And then he just kind of stopped using it. And yeah, I understand Volkanovski was punching his face in also.
But while he was why wouldn't you? I mean, the one time he was on top is when the mounted guillotine came. Mm-hmm. Was when he dropped Volkanovski off of Volkanovski throwing a kick. I'm not sure if it was a drop or a slip.
I think it got counted as a slip.
Okay, but the one time he was on top, he did some serious work and had his best opportunity. Mm-hmm. And then in the same scramble and same sequence of events, after he got out of the guillotine, he gets a triangle.
Yeah.
Imagine, just for a moment, if the really good jiu-jitsu player who just needs to get hands on you implemented a wrestling game.
It'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that just make more sense?
Yeah.
Like, let me have this really, really high level skill, but no way
Yeah.
of taking
But never
it to where
use
I can
it.
use it.
Yeah.
Well, he uses it just in weird
Yeah.
scrambles on the feet and on the ground, whatever. But catching kicks cannot be your only way of getting people down.
Yeah.
I think he would have been able to disrupt Volkanovski's pace just by attempting takedowns. And
Yeah.
I think part of the reason Volkanovski was able to land such hellacious grounding pound at the end of the third round was because Ortega kind of gassed himself out going for the squeezes a little bit. I mean, he recovered well in between rounds, but man, you're squeezing that hard on a guillotine for what was it, only 30 seconds? I mean, that's a little weird. Also, I think at the end of that round, Ortega was actually unconscious. I was kind of surprised.
Oh yeah, it seemed like he went out for a second. You know, it really seemed like Ortega just kind of went out for a second.
His corner helped him up to the stool. That's actually not allowed. I didn't know.
I thought they were going to call that fight.
They should have. And let me guess, Herb Dean again. Shocked. Anyway,
Zach is almost as big of a fan as Herb Dean as he is Raquel Pennington.
I used to like Herb Dean. It's just lately he either turns into like a Steve Mazzagatti and stops it way too early, or turns into a Mario Yamasaki and lets it go on way too late.
Yeah.
Like Herb is the best ref at some points and then the worst ref at other points. But moving on, I did want to talk about Valentina Shavchenko just putting absolute work on Lauren Murphy. And you never want to say that someone shouldn't be in there, because Lauren Murphy definitely earned her opportunity to be there. I mean, she won 4 fights in a row, was the rightful contender at this stage. But Valentina made her look like she didn't belong there.
Yeah.
And she's just on such a different level. And I, quite frankly, don't care who she fights next if it's not Amanda Nunes. I think Shevchenko is just going to put in that work. I don't see anyone in that. Have you actually looked at the rankings there? They're either coming off a loss or they're coming off a loss to Valentina.
Yeah. No one at her current weight can contend with her. There's no one that I see in that I'm like, yeah, they could give Valentina a good fight. No.
Like we thought Andrade because of the power.
Yeah. And then Andrade got bodied in round 2, right?
She got crucifixed. Yeah. I mean, she's just ahead in every position all the time. Yeah. So I think her versus Nunes is the only logical fight for her. I really do. But if they're going to keep sacrificing people to her,
I'll watch it still. I'll still watch it because I love watching Valentina kick some butt.
And I know you were pretty passionate about this one, Sean. Your boy taking a pretty big L. But what would you like to talk about Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler?
It was probably one of the saddest fights, and one of, like, honestly, not in the sense that, like, you know, it looked pathetic or anything like that, but just the lead up to it. Nick Diaz didn't feel like Nick Diaz. He didn't look like Nick Diaz. That's the worst shape I think I've ever seen him step into the octagon in. And then the most surprising thing is he just kind of, after Robbie Lawler dropped him in the third, and like he seemed to have like just busted open his nose, he just quit. Like he seemed to be getting up just fine. He wasn't out or anything like that. He looked like he could still intelligently defend himself even. He just didn't want to rise anymore. He just said, no, I'm good.
I don't want to
I never thought I'd see Nick Diaz quit, you know. It's kind of sad.
I don't want to kick a man while he's down, and I will have to acknowledge supposedly there was some sort of complications in his camp, and he didn't want to.
I will say though, even coming in the shape he looked, Nick Diaz threw like what, 130, 200 strikes. Like some ridiculous
amount. So slow.
What? He did look
slow. So slow.
He did look slow, but you know, like,
did they have any power on him? I mean, that was why Robbie didn't back up at all. Nothing Nick threw hurt.
Yeah.
And this is kind of an older Robbie Lawler, and we have to keep in mind, I don't think there's anyone currently in the welterweight division that Nick Diaz can beat in the UFC.
It might be true.
Who do you favor him against?
That might be true. Yeah. I don't think I can favor Nick Diaz against anyone right now.
So I think the UFC is going to give him one more. I think.
I hope to God he comes in like in better shape and not quite as in his head, you know?
I don't want it. I just don't.
Yeah, but it
I'm
seems like it'll
sorry.
probably happen. Nick implied he was doing it because he needs cash now. But everything aside, wish Nick Diaz the best. You know, like he's still one of my like favorite fighters, and I think one of the most entertaining fighters in his period. But he just didn't seem himself.
This felt
And
like
I don't know if I would necessarily hope to see him back in the octagon.
This felt like Triller or Golden Boy MMA 2.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call it like it is. Hold
But
that
let's hear your thoughts real quick on the Rosenstruck Blades fight.
Well,
How do you think that looked? What do you think is up with them?
Curtis Blades is very boring. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
Very dominant wrestler.
He is.
His transition to the ground game is pretty bad relative to other heavyweights. I mean, obviously, he beat the crap out of me. I'm not saying that he's bad in general, but compared to other heavyweights, yes, his transition to the ground game is not very good. On paper, Curtis Blades has the potential to be the best fighter in the heavyweight class. I truly believe that. And he has some good intangibles like the chin. Did you see the flying knee he ate?
That he just, yeah. He just ate that.
He ate it and finished the takedown. So I think that Blades has some work to do. And can I just say, Rosenstruck, unless you're bringing the boxing or aggression to him, doesn't throw. He gets frozen. It's weird. I don't understand it. He wants to be a counterpuncher. I get it, but I mean, you're down on the cards. Like
if you're down in the third and you lost the last 2 rounds, you got to do something big.
Yep. And Sean, moving on to a quicker fight, what do you think of Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo?
Honestly, who was shocked? It seems like there's 3 tiers at that weight class. There's Shavchenko tier, Andrade tier, and then everybody else. You know, like it just seems like they're both just in different tiers. They're just better than everybody else there.
Calvillo was having some success on the feet. She was definitely tagging her.
Yeah, but like, you know, ultimately we saw what's up. First round finish.
Andrade doesn't feel it. Like
what?
She just bulldozed through it. Andrade just bulldozed through it. That was what.
But that's how she does everything.
That's true, but I would like to see some technical improvements personally. I don't like the whole relying on the gusto of her chin and the power in her hands. I think there's something to being a bit more technical. Like I really like watching Andrade. Her knockouts are fun, but if she really ever wants to contend with someone like Shavchenko, I think she has to polish it up just a little bit. You can't just
I think that's the the separation between them is like Shavchenko is just so like technically good, you know, like she's just like she's got all the technicalities behind her.
She's also
Andrade is just like a brawler, you know.
Valentina's bigger though too.
Valentina is bigger as well.
I would actually argue that Valentina is probably stronger physically than Andrade. And the reason I'd say that is because Valentina could hang in really well at women's bantamweight. Andrade had some bantamweight fights, but Valentina is always physically strong. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I thought. I think that if they fight again, Valentina's going to take her down. The same thing. But even if it's on the feet, I think Shavchenko could implement a similar game plan that Joanna did back in the day against Andrade, and just kind of kick at her, keep her at distance, be the man in there.
I completely see that something Shavchenko would be able to do. But
and moving on, the Marlin Baris versus Marab Davao Shealy. That was an absolute war.
Is that how you say his name? Davao Shealy?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, cool.
That was an absolute war. I mean, Marab Davao Shealy just has like an absurd gas tank. The dude doesn't tire, and I think you could have made a case that fight could have been stopped in the end of the first round. I mean, Baris had Davao Shealy in so much trouble. I mean, it was pretty bad for him, but he survived. And then in round 2, I actually thought the stoppage was really late. But
I did too. It was like an absurd number of unanswered strikes.
Well, I kind of wonder if the referee was like, you know, I gave Marab every chance, now I have to give Marlin every chance.
When a man's been eating that many elbows within 5 minutes, I'd probably just call it.
But this was, weirdly enough, this was the best Marlin's looked in a while. But Marlin has been on a really bad losing skid, with the exception of the Aldo one that most people argue he lost since he lost to Cejudo.
Yeah.
He had a decent chin in this fight. I give him that, pretty good chin, absolute war. But he's been on a long losing skid. Wouldn't be surprised if the UFC cut him. Not to say he's still not better than a lot of the roster, but he's losing.
Fighters have been getting cut a lot easier now.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that he's an older fighter relative to how long he's been fighting, so he commands a bigger payday than a lot of the guys who are at the same tier as him at this point. So it would be just as much an economic decision as like a going forward decision for Marab.
Yeah, fair. That's fair, because like Yoel Romero got cut after a couple losses, and that was against like the top guys in the division, but he was an older fighter.
Most of Marlin's were against the top of the division too. I mean,
I'm not saying that they, that they weren't. I'm saying similar situations, so I could see a similar thing happening.
Yeah. Well, what'd you think of Dan Hooker versus Nazareth Hopkins?
I do like Dan Hooker. I go into a Dan Hooker fight and I expect, excitement. I expect a brawl. I expect it to be really fun. This wasn't really that.
I liked it.
What?
I liked it.
True. It's just not what I expected from Hooker to use the wrestling, and seemed to be a bit on the back foot as far as the striking went. But went to decision. Dan Hooker got the win. I'm glad. I am a huge Dan Hooker fan.
I liked it because Dan Hooker didn't take a bunch of abuse and he showed maturation in his game.
Also
he went to the ground when the striking was getting a little bit hairy instead of just brawling it out. I mean, if you look before this, he fought Chandler, Poirier, Felder. I mean, one vicious knockout and two complete wars. So it was nice for him to get a little step back in competition and be able to right himself. And hopefully he'll be better going forward. I actually think this is a good confidence builder for him. So I didn't mind that.
That's probably a really good point. I think he did need it. I think it was good for him to get not like an easy win, but like a less abusive win, I guess, because he was taking a lot of damage. Yeah, you're probably right. But you were surprised by this one. Tell us about the Medic Turner fight.
Sure. Uros Medic versus Jalen Turner. Medic came in at about a minus 185 favorite. He seemed to be the future. He actually hits pretty good striking. He was a very high level prospect that a lot of people believed, and me included, thought he was going to have a real great future, and he still might. I mean, Jalen Turner's no slouch. It's a early fight, but it wasn't like he lost in the worst way possible. Yes, he got finished in round one, but it was by a rear naked choke. He didn't take a crazy beating, and I think this will be something that he'll learn from and go back to the camp and figure it out. That's my personal take on that. I mean, do you have anything to add there, or?
Not particularly, I think you're right. If you're going to take a loss, make it an early loss, learn from it. Let's hope he grows.
And then the other one who I was pretty excited about was Nick Maximov defeating Corey Perendich by decision. I mean, he had 4 takedowns and he did really good work from it. I think Maximov is going to be a really good wrestler and he has some pretty good jiu-jitsu, but I mean, his name is Maximov. I wonder what he's going to be good at. Like, come on. And he's also one of Nick Diaz's boys, so it was kind of cool to see Nick paying it forward to another Nick.
There you go.
I thought that was really good to see. But overall, any final thoughts on the card, Sean?
Overall, it was a pretty entertaining card. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had a good time on it. Especially the last 2 fights. Those were super fun because I got to see Shavchenko punch Lauren Murphy a bunch of times. And then the Alexander Volk, absolutely exciting war. Andrade got to beat someone up, so it was a good day for her. And then the prelims were kind of fun too. So yeah, great card.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the card in general. There were a lot of finishes, but even most of the decisions were pretty fun. It would have been nice to have seen Nick Diaz come back in better shape and
Yeah.
looked a
Nick
little
Diaz.
better, that would have been cool. And he didn't have the snap on his punches. It just
Yeah.
something about it just seemed really off. So I hope he gets whatever help or whatever fixed that he needs to be fixed, or just retire. I mean,
or retire.
I wouldn't mind that because I'd rather not see Nick Diaz in BKFC in like 5 years. That'd be pretty cool to not see that.
That is true. I don't want to see that.
That'd be really sad. Nick Diaz versus Vitor Belfort. Triller fight promotion.
BKFC. Oh God.
No, just be Triller.
Just a Triller fight. Oh yeah, we'll see how that.
Nick Diaz on Jake Paul's undercard. When that happens, I'm like.
When that happens, I'll probably just stop watching combat sports forever.
Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley 7. It's just Tyron Woodley covered in Jake Paul tattoos at this point. He has like a realistic portrait.
Just trying to get his dub.
He has a realistic portrait on his arm.
Yeah. He's just covered in Paul tats. Like, oh God. What a fate to subject yourself.
And then Nick Diaz is the undercard fighting against Logan Paul. Like, come on. If that happens and we have to see Nick Diaz taking L's to Paul brothers, then I'm just done.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with just sports in general. I think I'll just give up on them.
Hey, let's make Colby Covington versus LeBron James for the Snowpiercer Fire.
Colby Covington versus LeBron James.
Do you not remember that?
No, I don't. What?
You really don't remember that?
No, I don't.
Dude, there was a whole thing like who would win, LeBron James or Colby Covington? It was a legit thing. I promise you, it was like all over the MMA Twitter sphere.
Really? Obviously. Okay, we'll say the answer in 3. On 3. 1, 2, 3. LeBron James.
I hate you. You already know that's not true. I know you're memeing. I know you're memeing.
What do you mean?
I know you're memeing.
LeBron James has the reach, and he's an athlete.
Colby's not an athlete?
Yeah, but LeBron is.
Yeah, but Colby is too.
Yeah, but so is LeBron.
LeBron's balding.
He is balding. That is true. But he's got the reach, just pump that jab.
Do you know how easily Colby would take him down? Like, just, you're very well aware. Colby would just take him down and then just start yelling at him about Black Lives Matter over and over again.
And then LeBron would bench press him because Colby's 5'2".
Colby's like 6 foot tall.
He's
like 5'11".
Boy.
I think he might be your height.
What, 5'2"?
I know you're not 5'2", Sean.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. But
Sean,
you are forgetting LeBron James is like 6'8".
Yeah.
I think he just bench presses Colby off of him. Actual prediction how it goes. LeBron just dunks him.
For some reason, I just think Colby kicks him in the legs once and LeBron's like tiny legs break.
I think so too.
Like LeBron, I mean, look at his legs, dude. I don't think LeBron's ever had leg day.
Let me look up his legs real quick. Let's see
From
these.
what I remember, they look like ostrich legs from what I remember.
Oh, they aren't that tiny. They aren't as big as that one, they're pretty big. I don't know what you mean. His legs are pretty normal, I think.
I know. It's hard to find pictures of his legs that are like not him wearing socks.
Fair. But all right. Thank you so much for tuning into the Dumpster Fire Fight Review. You can follow us on Twitter at the Not So Black Beast. Zach, anything else?
I don't think I have anything else to add other than, screw Raquel Pennington. That's about it.
Zach, number 1 Raquel Pennington fan. I'm Sean. That was Zach. Have a good night, guys.